Assalamu alaikum. You are listening to Extraordinary Ramadan with me, Shaheen Sattar, on Ramadan Radio 87.9 FM, online at ramadanradio.org, and streaming on Facebook. Please call, text, WhatsApp with your feedback, questions, or comments on 077 614 60614. That's 077 614 60614. Now, what is this show about for all newcomers? Ordinary people doing extraordinary things in an extraordinary time. Join me, speak to people as I speak to people taking up crazy challenges, completing huge goals in this less than ordinary month. Jazakallahu khair for joining us today. I hope your Ramadan is going well. I think it's the 9th of Ramadan today. Time flies. And I am sort of, waking up every morning thinking, I can't believe time has gone so fast. So let me introduce today's topic. Our topic today is on grief and legacy and honouring those who have left this dunya. There was a recent Amalia article that I read, and I know you guys all know how much of a fan I am of Amalia. A recent Amalia article that discussed navigating grief in this holy month, and generally, I suppose, navigating grief. One of the things that I mentioned really was that grief is such a bewildering thing, in that, navigating it is bewildering because how unaffected the rest of the world seems to be by your anguish. It seems that the world is sort of moving on, and despite the void that you're struggling to cope with, that the sun still rises each day, that the night still falls, and others around you sort of slot back into the routine of the day. And the living and the peace of living and the pace of living indeed seems somewhat indifferent to the intense pain that you're experiencing. And grief can really teach us that the rhythmic cycles of the world don't really stop for anyone or anything. So you really have to deal with loss by carrying it through, both the literal and metaphorical seasons of life. Some seasons of life, however, provide windows of opportunity to nurse your grief. And Ramadan, in a sense, is a wonderful opportunity in this regard. Now, last week, I told you guys to get in touch if you had anyone who you knew who was doing something extraordinary, or you knew who was doing something quite grand in this holy month or in the months previous to this. And a listener, Yasin Maki, got in touch with me and told me the story of his 13-year-old cousin who has recently passed away, I think a few weeks ago. The message he sent me that described her was really beautiful. And he described as sort of, he said she was always a very caring and thoughtful individual who lived a very positive life, no matter what obstacles or challenges came her way. And there was one thing in particular that he mentioned about his cousin, is that she was a keen writer and had written a number of short stories over the past few years, even winning a writing competition whilst undergoing treatment at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And that sort of obviously conjured up images of a young Matilda sort of, in Great Ormond Street Hospital. Now, Aisha is no longer with us, but Yasin did mention that her family have compiled some of her stories into a book, which has now been published on and is available on Amazon, actually. And the first in the series is called The Unusual Flower and Other Short Stories for Children. There are, a few short stories that are in that book. So, one of them is called The Bridge, where you get taught about, lots of morals for both adults and children. And there are so many things that to be learned from Aisha herself. So The Bridge can teach us that troubles are not permanent. That is what a bridge discovers after being bullied continuously. And there's another short story actually called The Shark, which is a story that teaches that a little help from friends and a simple prayer can overcome the constant threats of a dangerous predator. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce my special guest today. And our special guest today, we are honoured to be joined by Aisha's father, Aisha Bakhrani. To introduce him, I suppose I can really just introduce him as a serial entrepreneur. I've checked out his profile online, and there is no real other way to describe him. He can be credited to being a major player in the introduction of broadband and satellite TV in Kenya, the world's first virtual reality zoo, though now he has taken a step back and is focusing on his philanthropic work. In 2015, he launched the Aisha Project, which was an educational initiative to alleviate education poverty in rural Africa. I won't go on. There are so many things about him that I could mention. Abdul Bakhrani, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Great to have you here. How's your Ramadan going so far?
Extremely well. Yeah, we've just been doing the usual stuff that everybody do, stay at home, and missing our Aisha.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure the Ramadan is a lot more different this year than it has been in previous years.
Yep.
So I first wanted to sort of start off by asking you, I mean, tell me the process of how you went from, I think you mentioned on the phone to me, that you were in and out of Dubai, from being a real serial entrepreneur businessman to coming to focus on your charity work and then publishing your daughter's book.
Yeah. So what happened is I've been in business for like 30 years, and previously, when I was living in Kenya, I was involved in broadband and bringing broadband to the country. I was, I literally, brought satellite broadband to Kenya and several other African countries through my previous business. And while we were doing that, and we were going around, and we saw how much poverty there was, and it's not poverty as in literal poverty that we all understand. We're talking about information poverty, knowledge poverty, that there was a lot of children who were being deprived of basic, and I said knowledge is and education is right. And these children were just being deprived of that. So we decided that while we are empowering the urban cities and the metros with broadband for businesses, we're going to do something for these information poverty-stricken communities in rural parts of Kenya. And so we worked on this project called the Rural Internet Kiosk, whereby we designed and came up with this kiosk that would is powered by solar, and it was got satellite internet. We put these in villages, and we just saw people started using. So it's the human brain is very intuitive, and this is I'm discussing this in length because this leads on to the to where we are now. So what we were doing is these kiosks had 3 computers, and what we were doing, we were just leaving them in villages overnight. And when these kids got up and in the morning, or they're walking to school, these kids they knew what a computer was in a newspaper, but they never seen one in real life. And this is the first time they actually saw a computer, and they would go on the keyboard. And the amazing thing is, what really floored all of us was some of these kids, within 1 hour, they had a Hotmail email address. That Hotmail was the only thing that was. They'd seen the computers. So that's how the human mind works. That if you give the tools, the human mind will develop using those tools and come up with something. And then we started, deploying this through partners. And that's how we learned that when you give children the means to educate themselves, they will. And then so again we continued on that. And then in 2010, 11, I was involved in digital media, and we did some projects in digital distribution of media through different technologies. And Aisha was born in 2007, and in 2008 we moved to Dubai. And because she had a medical condition from birth, she never went to school. She was again, her mind, her brain was was always seeking for knowledge. So she was homeschooled, and YouTube helped a lot. So I looked at, when she was about 8 or 9 years old, I looked at the way she had developed herself educationally, with her knowledge of whatever a kid her age was doing in school. And it was all through the public internet, through YouTube, through educational on using educational apps on her iPad. And I said, if this content was to be available to the whole wide world, children who are unprivileged, imagine what they could do. So we launched this project called the Aisha Project, and Aisha actually stands for Advanced Interactive School Helping Aids. Right. So, but it's and it was based on what Aisha had done to herself. And we launched this project in 2015, and this was to empower. So I'll give you an example of a country like Kenya. I spoke to the minister there, and he said that they had about 21,000 public primary schools. but almost 90% of them were in rural areas and they lacked teachers. So they would have 4 or 5 classrooms, but probably one teacher. So we came up with this technology of, I won't go into detail, but it was to empower. And then, of course, we did all the work. It's the technology is there, the platforms are there, but I personally got busy with Aisha's health, which was not doing well. So, and then in 2018, when she was about 11 years old, towards the end, we moved to the UK to get her into the Great Ormond Street Hospital, and it worked out well for her. She started getting better, and she started writing books when she was about she was stories. I mean, when she was about 7 or 8 years old, and she used to write in a small notebook, and then we, as to beginning of the year, I told her, Aisha, we've got so many stories, we've got to start publishing them. So we then started looking at that in about January, end of January, and she was so excited that her stories would finally go out there. And one of her stories, as you said, won her a prize and a competition at the hospital as well. And these small little things excited her because she was not exposed to the public. She was just at home and schooling and that time then she had started schooling in the hospital as well. She used to go there 3 or 4 times a week for her treatment. But all this, so the amazing thing about Aisha was that whatever she wrote was from her imagination and from her fantasy, because she wasn't exposed to the world like other children are. Her exposure was very limited to people. So whatever she wrote was from her imagination and fantasy. So we took those stories and we started compiling them, and we saw that there were quite a few. So we did the first book, which is The Unusual Flower, as you said, and published it on Amazon, and it's doing quite well. A lot of support from the community, and our intention is that we can raise the money from that initiative on Amazon in the Western world, then use that to print thousands more books and distribute them to children in rural areas, in the unprivileged children who cannot afford it and would love to hear fantasy stories. Because
that's the wider goal then, to use the income that comes from Aisha.
Yes, yeah, and then we make it part, because we are reviving the Aisha project again. Once these books are done, the next phase is we are reviving the Aisha project, and till today a technology like that has not been implemented, although it's 2015, so it's 7-8 years. It was all proprietary technology that we developed through our network of business partners, and this again was tested in rural Africa, it was tested in rural India, and there was very positive results. But coming back to the all this was again I said everything came from Aisha. Everything came from seeing her, how a child right in front of you, who has got no exposure to anything public like schools or friends, right? How a mind can develop and be creative and imaginative even without being exposed to all these elements.
Well, I mean, it's always surprising how our children's minds can really wander from place to place. And
exactly.
Characters, even when you ask the child to draw something, the weird animals that they'll draw, you'd never think that they exist.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure so many things that Aisha could teach us as well. I mean, that was actually my next question that I was going to ask you is, what lessons can Aisha teach us as adults, as people in this dunya?
Yeah, so basically she, mashallah, she completed the Quran
at 13.
Yeah,
mashallah.
She didn't learn Arabic, but she completed the Quran in English on her iPad, and she just surprised us one day. And she said, because I used to see her, reading ayahs from the app on her iPad, and so all her education, all her communication, and everything was through her iPad or her she didn't have a phone, but mostly it was through her iPad and everything. And she used to communicate and do all even her schooling, her online schooling. She had started in January. Teachers were extremely impressed with how she was progressing. But coming back to your question, what Aisha taught us is she was very patient. With all she went through in 13 years, she never complained. So she took everything as it was given to her. She was extremely compassionate. She had decided to give everything that she did, because She used to get so many gifts. Her whole room was full of toys, and she just would give that out to charity. We would just ship, boxes out to Kenya, and she was so there was a lot of compassion in her,
Yeah.
and
I don't really
she
know many
under
14-year-olds who.
yeah. Yeah, and she would give out the things she loved the most, and she possessed. She would give them out, and she thought that, I would rather somebody else make better use of it than I do.
Mm.
She had a lot of faith. She said, she prayed a lot, and with even with what she had, and she was always thankful to Allah for whatever Allah had given her. So these are the few things we learned from her: is to be patient, to be compassionate, to thank Allah for everything that He gives you. Even if it's not perfect, be thankful every minute to the Almighty. And this is what we learned from her, Shane.
There is so much. I mean,
Yeah,
it's always a thing that, like, children learn from their parents, and
yeah,
we're always taught that your elders are the most smart, and you should always listen to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Just that they're
yeah,
always right and stuff. But for someone, for a parent to learn so much from their child is really a testament to how you brought up Aisha,
yeah.
and what she's left in this world.
I mean, even the medical staff at Great Ormond Street, the doctors, the nurses, they always kept on saying that every time we meet Aisha, we learn something new from her.
Mm.
She kept everybody at their toes. She was always telling the doctors to discuss things with her, then with her parents. So she was aware of everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Super smart. Alhamdulillah, Allah had given her an extraordinary brain.
Yeah. Well, may Allah guide, she will be the reason that you guys go to Jannah, inshallah. And that she will be the reason that you guys, that your wife and your kids, and, that you guys all,
Inshallah.
inshallah. And I'm so sorry to make you sort of, I hope I didn't make it too emotional, the sort of, conversation here. I wanted to talk about, Aisha herself, and that, you've made her legacy such a deep one already, so profound, the books, and, what you've done with the Aisha project.
Yes.
What can we, what can we do from here in sort of, instilling her legacy, and, what can average people do other than reading the books, and, other than, how would you want to see Aisha's message in this world?
You see, so what the books do is that the stories have got a message.
Mm.
So and the audiobook is apparently, Amazon takes a while to do the audiobook, but the audiobook is narrated extremely well. And when young children listen to that, they'll want to listen to it again and again. So we've got an audible version of her book coming out in a couple of weeks. But the thing here is that one of the reasons that we were so adamant to get this book out is that her stories have got a message, and the message is all about kindness, generosity, religion, faith, and prayers and all that. And what we wanted is when yeah, parents give her books to children, they have to explain to them to have a deep understanding of what that story is, and how it makes a change in their attitude to and look towards life. But the whole idea, the bigger picture, is that we want to be able to reach as many children as we can, and adults at the same time, globally, to sort of learn what we learned from Aisha.
Yeah.
So we want her in that information to be disseminated to the larger community, so they can learn what we learned from Aisha, and it's everything positive, and make people more humble, more compassionate, be kind to everybody. I mean, look at what we are going through in the world today. I
Exactly.
mean, we've got anybody and everybody that we know has got somebody close to them who has fallen due to this pandemic. So we just have to learn that we have to be kind to each other. There's nothing else that we are going to go with apart from the good deeds, and the goodwill that we left with the people that we met and we knew. That's what we want to try, and the information we want to try and share with the whole wide world, and with everybody who's listening, and everybody that we know.
And there really is nothing else that you leave in this world except for how you've treated others.
Yes, yeah, that's how everybody's remembering Aisha. I mean, thousands and thousands of people are sending us messages, and and because even though they might not have met her, they've heard about her. And and because we were in Dubai, and we, she was so friendly and talkative to everybody. And in my business, we used to have so many people coming to our house. I mean, globally, people are reaching out to us for her.
And there was such a big impact as well in that not
Yeah,
only people in Dubai who are reading her books, but
yeah,
non-Muslims who are reading her books and
yeah,
are
yeah,
about our faith and the compassion that we saw in Aisha that she
yeah,
learned from our faith as well. You
yeah.
know, it's a sadqa jariyah as well that you leave in this world, and the
Inshallah.
impact that it has in your afterlife.
Yeah,
And if anything there is to live by in this dunya is that your afterlife is the most important thing.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Um, so
absolutely.
you've got the one book out right now, which is the first in the series. What
Yeah.
are you doing now? What are the other plans for continuing Aisha's legacy?
There's two more longer stories. So these were the short ones that we compiled. There's two more which are going to be a book on its own. They are one is an amazing. I can't say much right now, but the second one is going to be a phenomenal story of imagination at a stage where you can't even think of how a child can imagine. And the third one is where she has put herself into one of a well-known stories as a main character, a very very well-known children's story. She's put herself as the main character and twisted it in such a way that it fits her character, and how she would have taken that character in that wonderful fantasy.
Well, Eid is coming up, so I
Yeah,
hope every listener who's listening to this will get
yeah.
these books for not only their children, but I think I could actually learn quite a lot from these books as well.
Absolutely. I mean, let's say for adults and children, a lot of adults have bought these books, and they've messaged me that what they've kept on reading it again and again. And that's when once the audible version is out, the audiobook version, that's going to cause a big impact because it's the way it's narrated. Our emotions have been reflected very well in that. So we hope that comes out before Ramadan, so we can share that as well with everybody.
Well, there are so many learning points that come from this book in that,
Yeah,
if I could just close now, I mean, that is that, the connection between you and the one you've lost, it
yeah.
doesn't end with their worldly life.
No,
It's not
no,
just that, they've left this dunya and then that's it.
absolutely no, no,
It's
no.
that they've
Yeah,
passed through one stage in what is
yeah,
a longer journey, and people in this world, and we still have the ability to benefit from Aisha,
yeah,
we can
yeah,
benefit, the ability to benefit from other people who have passed away despite them having moved on to the akhirah.
yeah.
um, but it really does teach me, that we really should have gratitude for what remains in this world right now. And
Absolutely.
at the beginning of this episode,
Yeah,
this radio show, I began by saying it's already the 9th of Ramadan, and
yeah,
like everything in life, Ramadan will come and grow with startling speed. And
yeah.
what we can learn, from from Aisha's story and from the speed at which life is going is to really extract every drop of nourishing mercy you can from.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we don't have enough time in today's world. We don't have enough time. We think we do, but we don't. So we got to, make most of every minute. Thank the Almighty for giving us that time, whatever we have, and do something good that's going to leave behind, something good for everyone.
Absolutely. And we can find so much inspiration as well by everything that you as a parent have done for your daughter as well. I mean, our parents love us so much, but how
Yeah,
can we show that same love to them?
yeah,
And that I talk about an extraordinary Ramadan, but an extraordinary one is quite subjective as well. You don't need to run marathons,
no, 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 no. Yeah,
but you can take steps to helping out your parents with a month too, and I could
yeah,
certainly help my mum more with cooking and stuff as well.
yeah, yeah.
But really, just just to reiterate the point that the time we have with one another and our families is limited.
Absolutely. Yeah, you make the most of it.
We should see that it's a real narrow window of time, and we should really see it for the immense blessings that there are here. It was a very short a radio hit today, but inshallah I will join you all soon again. If I just wanted to close quite briefly right now by saying Jazakallah and thank for your time with us today, Abdul. And if you guys want to buy his books, Aisha's books, we will post the link below on the Facebook page. Jazakallah khair and Assalamu
Thank you
alaikum.
so much. It's pleasure, Shaheen. Thank you so much.
Let's have you on the show. And
Yeah.
thank you for listening to Shaheen Sattar on Ramadan Radio 87.9 FM. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.